Severe weather, flash flooding, and fire updates for October 3rd, 2025. Good morning, I'm meteorologist Pew, and we have a lot of things going on today. So starting with the tropics, we don't have any hurricanes anymore, but we do have two tropical disturbances. We're still looking at the one that's off of Florida, where there's a 10% chance it's on the forming in the next 48 hours and the next 7 days. But we also have another one off in the deep Atlantic, where there's a 40% chance of something happening in the next 7 days. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that. But this isolated low pressure system that's around the Bahamas area is causing a lot of flash flooding that we've been seeing in Florida for the past few days. And unfortunately, that's going to pretty much continue today. The Weather Prediction Center has issued a slight risk for flash flooding, especially on the east coastline. And so throughout the peninsula of Florida, you guys can expect isolated to scattered heavy rain throughout the day and night. And so with this low pressure, and that's counterclockwise flow, we do have a high pressure in the mid-Atlantic, and that's clockwise flow. And so with these two combined, it's bringing easterly winds into Florida directly, which is bringing a lot of moisture into this area. And with Florida being pretty hot with temperatures above 80 and also dew points in the mid 70s, we're going to have a lot of buoyancy and a lot of instability to create these thunderstorms. Now, speaking of thunderstorms, we do have a marginal risk in the west, or 1 out of 5, from the borders of Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, and Colorado. And what this entails is we're going to see an isolated risk for hail and wind. Though these isolated severe weather risks won't happen until around 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and this is going to go on throughout the night as well. But in addition to all this, we still have that marginal flash flood risk going from Nevada to Idaho, where we still have remnants of showers from yesterday's past storms, and that's going to continue on this morning and throughout the day. And if we look at 500 millibars or midway to the troposphere, this is all caused by this cyclone that's been coming from the Pacific and finally traveling slowly eastward. And at this very moment, it's a positively tilted trough, meaning that the base of the trough is leaning more to the west. But as it leans more to the east, it's going to become more neutral and negative, which is going to bring more potential energy for these storms. And with that being said, we do have a lot of shear, and that's going to help tilt those updrafts and prolong these storms, which is why we're seeing them last for so long. And then in addition to that, we'd have a lot of vorticity or spin, and that's going to help with the upward motion in all these areas. And then not to mention, this trough is really strong, so it's bringing a lot of strong northerly winds and southerly winds. So places in the west, we can see cooler to average temperatures, but places in the eastern Rockies and plains, we're going to see higher than average temperatures. And so because of that, and because of this trough, we're actually having a low pressure being developed somewhere around the Wyoming area. And throughout the day, this low pressure is going to deepen, which is going to increase the pressure gradient, which also means it's going to increase the surface winds. And because low pressures are counterclockwise flow, and because we're going downslope for the mountains, we're going to have extremely dry downslope winds going into these areas. In the past, we've seen this downslope of dry air going into moist environments, creating the dry line, which creates thunderstorms. But in this case, it's just going into more relatively dry air. And so with that, we're actually going to have an elevated fire risk going from Wyoming to South Dakota. We're going to have relative humidities go as low as 10 to 15%, but also surface winds from 15 to 25 miles per hour. And I do want to point out something similar is going to happen tomorrow, where we're going to have an elevated fire risk going all the way from eastern Colorado to places like Minnesota and Iowa.